Cole Maddox had been in rooms like this his whole life, all sparkle, no soul. 100 chandeliers blazed overhead, silverware clinked in delicate patterns, and polished strangers laughed at things that weren't funny. He'd already decided to leave early, until he saw her. Not across the room like in some storybook. No, she was right there in the corner, lit by the warm glow from the buffet lamps, holding a chicken leg with both hands. She took a bite so generous, the crispy skin cracked audibly, and for the briefest moment, her eyes fluttered closed. When she opened them again, a smudge of seasoning curved near her smile. She wasn't trying to be alluring, which was exactly why she was. Before we go further, if you want more love stories that hit deep and stay with you, subscribe right now, like this video, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next one. He'd met women groomed for nights like this, flawless posture, perfect hair, every gesture rehearsed. But she sat with her elbow on the table, laughing quietly to herself as if the world belonged to her and her plate of food. She noticed him watching. Instead of pretending she hadn't, she met his gaze and smiled, slow, sure, amused. It felt less like a polite acknowledgement and more like a silent dare. Cole found his feet moving toward her before his mind caught up. The noise of the room blurred, replaced by the faint sound of her nails tapping the porcelain plate. He stopped at her table. "You should try this," she said, nodding toward the platter beside her. Her voice had that smooth, unpolished honesty that made it impossible to doubt her. "It's the only real thing in this room." He almost laughed, not at the words themselves, but at how directly they hit him. "And what brings you here?" he asked. She wiped her fingers delicately on a napkin, not because she was supposed to, but because she wanted to. "I was promised food, that was it. No elaborate backstory, no flirty flourish, just the truth. And somehow, it was the most intriguing answer he'd heard in years. Her name was Alara, no last name offered, no resume of accomplishments. It felt like she was giving him just enough to earn more, if he wanted it, and he did. Cole didn't notice the flash of cameras nearby or the board members signaling him from across the room. He didn't care. Every movement she made was unhurried yet certain, like she was entirely comfortable being exactly who she was. He didn't know yet that she carried a secret, one she guarded fiercely, one that would test every idea he had about trust and love. All he knew was that in a hall full of masks, she was the only face that felt real. What Cole didn't know was that the woman with the chicken drumstick wasn't here to charm him, and she certainly wasn't here to play his world's games. But somehow, without meaning to, she was about to become the one person who could rewrite them. Cole Maddox knew how to dominate a boardroom, close a deal, and silence an entire table with a single glance. At 34, he'd turned Maddox and Gray Enterprises into a fortress of influence. Every decision was calculated, every meeting timed to the minute. Efficiency was his language. But gatherings like this? They tested every ounce of his patience. He stood near a marble pillar in Hudson Hall, his expression giving away none of the irritation simmering under the surface. These nights were always the same, a parade of perfect smiles, champagne toasts, and conversations that meant absolutely nothing. He could spot the practiced charm from across the room, women who laughed at lines they'd heard 100 times, men who bragged with the subtlety of a sledgehammer. Cole had been in relationships with women from this circle before. Beautiful, yes. Immaculate in presentation, yes. But their elegance was a costume, and he'd grown tired of costumes. The moment he sensed pretense, he lost interest. His father had once called such women perfect paper dolls. Cole didn't bother giving them a name anymore. He simply kept his distance. That was when he saw her. It wasn't her dress that caught his attention, though the midnight blue fabric was simple and understated in a way that somehow made her stand out. It wasn't her hair, loosely tied back with a few strands falling free. It was what she was doing. She was sitting near the edge of the buffet, a plate balanced comfortably in her lap, holding a chicken leg like it was the finest treasure in the building. She took a bite, not a timid, polite nibble, but a full bite that made the crispy skin crack. She chewed slowly, eyes closing just for a second as though committing the flavor to memory. In a place where everyone else was performing, she was simply being. For reasons he didn't entirely understand, Cole found himself moving toward her. The chatter of the crowd dulled in his mind, replaced by the faint, savory scent drifting from her plate. She looked up when he stopped at her table. A smile curved her lips, unhurried, unashamed. "You should try this," she said, lifting the chicken leg slightly in his direction. Her voice carried a natural warmth, the kind that made you feel she wasn't trying to charm you. It was simply who she was. It's the only real thing in this room. The line hit him with surprising force. No one here talked like that. In these circles, people complimented the decor, commented on the wine, or asked where you'd summered last year. This woman skipped all of it. "I'm Cole," he offered, extending his hand. "Alara." Her grip was steady, her gaze unflinching. She didn't rush to add a last name, nor did she launch into a self-introduction meant to impress. Just her name, as if it was all he needed to know for now. "What brings you here, Alara?" She gave the buffet table a quick glance. "I was promised food. It seemed like a fair deal." He chuckled, quietly, but enough for her to notice. "Not the usual answer I get. Maybe you've been asking the wrong people," she replied, taking another bite. There was an ease about her, a quiet confidence that made him want to keep talking just to see what she would say next. She didn't fill the air with unnecessary words. She didn't angle her body toward him like she was trying to capture his attention. She already had it, completely. In a room where appearances were currency, Ilara's indifference to them was magnetic. She was the kind of woman you couldn't label, couldn't neatly categorize, and maybe that was what made her unforgettable. From somewhere behind him, Cole heard his name being called, the clipped, polite tone of a board member, eager to parade him around. He didn't move. His focus stayed on the woman who seemed more interested in finishing her chicken than in who he was. If you were in her place, would you have the courage to do that? To be unapologetically yourself in a room full of people ready to judge? Tell me in the comments and make sure you subscribe so you can join me for more stories like this one. Ilara set her plate aside, brushing her fingertips against a folded napkin in a way that was casual, not choreographed. "You don't look like someone who enjoys these events," she observed. "I don't," Cole admitted. He could have dressed the answer up, softened it, but her straightforwardness was contagious. "Then why come?" "Obligation," he said simply. "And you?" "Free food," she replied without hesitation, her lips twitching with the faintest trace of humor. He found himself studying her face, not in the way he might have studied a negotiation partner, reading for tells, but simply because he wanted to. There was something in the curve of her smile, in the steadiness of her eyes, that felt grounding. For a fleeting moment, he pictured walking out of the hall with her, leaving the glass and glitter behind for someplace quieter. The thought surprised him. "I should probably get back to my table," she said, standing. She wasn't abrupt, but she didn't linger for effect either. It was as if she trusted that if they were meant to speak again, they would. Cole stepped aside to let her pass, catching a faint trace of something light and warm. Maybe her perfume, maybe just her. As she disappeared into the flow of guests, one truth settled in his chest. This wasn't the last time he would see her. But for now, he was left with questions. Who was she, really? What kind of life did she step back into when she left nights like this behind? And why, in a hall full of people vying for his attention, was she the only one who felt real? The rest of the evening passed in a blur. He spoke when spoken to, shook hands when necessary, but his mind was elsewhere, replaying a bite of chicken, an unguarded laugh, and a name spoken with quiet confidence. When Cole finally stepped into the night air, he knew one thing with certainty. Ilara Quinn had just unsettled a part of him he didn't know was waiting to be moved. Serena Vale arrived at Maddox in gray like a headline walking, flawless suit, a cool smile that never quite reached her eyes, and a stride that suggested she was expected everywhere she went. The receptionist barely had time to announce her before Serena was gliding past glass walls toward Cole's office, a small gift bag in hand, as if this were a friendly drop-in. Cole stood when she entered, courtesy, not warmth. "Serena," he said evenly. "You're early." "I like being first," she replied, placing the bag on his desk. "Dark chocolate almonds. Your assistant said you'd stop drinking coffee in the afternoons." He didn't touch the bag. "What brings you here?" She settled into the chair opposite him, crossing one leg over the other with surgical grace. "I heard you made quite an appearance at Hudson Hall." Her tone was light, her eyes weren't. Cole said nothing. "Word travels," she continued. "Apparently you were captivated," a faint shrug, "by a woman who wasn't on the guest list." Interesting. He felt the familiar prickle of annoyance. "I go where I want. I speak to whom I want." "I know," Serena said smoothly. "That's what makes you you. But you and I also know there's an understanding between our families. No pressure," she smiled. "Just history." He leaned back. "History doesn't dictate my life." She tilted her head. "Not every woman is what she appears to be, Cole. Especially the ones who catch you off guard. The kind who show up beside a buffet line and act like they don't know who you are. A beat. It's charming. Until it isn't. He kept his voice calm. You don't know her. I know patterns. Serena's gaze stayed steady. Men like you are targets, whether you admit it or not. So indulge your curiosity if you must. Just be sure you know what you're getting. She rose, smoothing an invisible crease from her skirt. I'm hosting a dinner next week. Come. Bring authenticity, if that's your new hobby. She moved to the door, paused, and offered a last silken warning. Be careful with your heart, Cole. People who pretend they don't want anything are often the ones who want the most. The door clicked shut. Cole stared at the untouched bag of almonds. He wasn't angry exactly. He was certain. About what, he wasn't ready to name. Only that her caution didn't discourage him. It clarified something. Whatever Alara was, she was real in a way this world rarely allowed. And he wanted to see her again. 2 days after Serena's visit, Cole found himself cutting through Riverside Park on his way to a meeting. The morning air was crisp, the kind that sharpened the edges of the city's noise. He was halfway down the main path when he noticed her. Alara sat on a weathered bench, a sketchbook balanced on her knees. A pencil moved quickly in her hand, her focus so deep she didn't see him at first. She wore jeans, a soft gray sweater, and no makeup, and somehow looked more striking than anyone at Hudson Hall. Cole stopped a few feet away, curious. What are you working on? She glanced up, shielding the page with her hand in a way that was playful, not defensive. Trade secret. He smiled. I didn't know you drew. That's because you didn't ask, she said, tilting her head toward the sketchbook. I'm a freelance illustrator. Keeps me busy. Her phone buzzed on the bench beside her. She glanced at the screen, then ignored it. You're far from your marble pillars today, she teased. Some of us like fresh air, he replied. She smirked. Some of you just get lost on the way to a meeting. Before he could answer, she closed the sketchbook and stood. I have to go. No explanation, no offer to meet again. Just a friendly nod before she walked toward the park exit, disappearing into the crowd. A week later, Cole ducked into a coffee shop between back-to-back calls. He was halfway through ordering when he heard that same warm voice behind him. You're in my spot. He turned to find Alara leaning against the counter, holding a cup with her name already scribbled across the lid. Your spot? He asked. She shrugged. Every Tuesday right here. It's tradition. They sat by the window, steam curling up from their cups. She talked about her latest project, her clients scattered across different cities. When he asked about her family, she answered briefly, changing the subject back to her work. She never asked about his company, never mentioned his last name. It was as if she genuinely didn't care who he was, only the conversation in front of them. When she left, she touched his arm lightly. See you around, Cole? He watched her go, realizing he had no control over when, or if, their paths would cross again, and that unpredictability made him want the next time even more. It happened on a Saturday morning. Cole had decided to walk instead of taking the car, enjoying the rare freedom of a day without meetings. He was passing a small neighborhood bookstore when a burst of laughter caught his attention. Through the open door, he saw Alara near the children's section, crouched beside a boy who couldn't have been more than 6. His hair was a messy chestnut, his grin wide as he held up a picture book for her approval. That one? She asked, her voice warm enough to soften anyone's edges. The boy nodded enthusiastically. She ruffled his hair, then reached into a worn canvas tote bag for her wallet. She didn't see Cole standing just outside. He lingered, watching her pay for the book and hand it to the boy, who clutched it like treasure. They stepped out onto the sidewalk, sunlight catching in the strands of her hair. Only then did she notice him. Cole, she said, her smile quick but measured. I didn't know you were in this neighborhood. Just walking, he replied, his gaze shifting briefly to the boy. Friend of yours? This is Leo, she said simply. We're on our way to the park. Leo looked up at him with curious eyes, then tugged at Alara's hand. She glanced at Cole as if weighing something, then said, We should go. Story time waits for no one. She didn't elaborate and Cole didn't press. But as they walked away, a quiet sense of wanting settled over him. He didn't know if Leo was her nephew, a family friend, or something more, but the way she looked at the boy, protective, tender, stirred something in him. That afternoon, in the quiet of his apartment, Cole realized Serena's words had faded to background noise. The only thing that mattered was the way Alara kept surprising him, revealing just enough to keep him curious while guarding the rest like something precious. And the truth was, he wanted to earn the right to know all of it. The next time Cole saw Alara was by chance, or so he told himself. He'd been meeting a client in a quiet cafe on the east side when, through the window, he spotted her at an outdoor table. A sketchbook lay open beside a half-empty cup of tea, her pencil moving in quick, confident strokes. He excused himself from the meeting the moment it ended and stepped outside. "You always work in public?" he asked, coming to stand beside her. She looked up, brushing a strand of hair from her cheek. "Sometimes. Keeps me from staring at the same four walls all day." He sat down without being invited, which earned him a brief, amused glance. They talked about nothing and everything. The weather turning cooler, a street performer playing violin nearby, the little details most people overlooked. She mentioned deadlines but never complained about them. She didn't use work as a badge of self-importance. When he offered to walk her home, she hesitated before agreeing. Along the way, they passed a couple arguing loudly on the sidewalk. Cole noticed how Alara's shoulders tensed, how her hand tightened around the strap of her bag. He found himself slowing his pace, angling his body closer to hers, as if to shield her from the noise. "Thanks," she said softly once they were clear. It was a single word, but it landed somewhere deep. That evening, he caught himself thinking about the small things, the way she paid attention when he spoke, how she never seemed to perform for approval, how her laughter came easily, but never cheaply. She wasn't just different from the people in his world, she was different from anyone he'd ever met, and that difference made him want to protect it, to protect her. Cole didn't know why she kept her life so carefully edited in front of him, or why the boy at the bookstore hadn't come up again. But he knew this. Every time they met, she became harder to forget. Cole didn't know why she kept her life so carefully edited in front of him, or why the boy at the bookstore hadn't come up again. But he knew this. Every time they met, she became harder to forget. Some people walk into your life and fit neatly where you expect them to. Alara didn't. She had her own shape, her own rhythm, and without warning, she was filling spaces in him he hadn't realized were empty. If you're still here, it's because this story has touched something in you. Share it with someone who believes in love that feels real, and don't forget to subscribe so you can be here when the next one begins. Evening settled over the city with a soft hush that made everything feel closer. Cole stepped out of a meeting to find Alara waiting under the awning of a small art supply store, tucking her sketchbook into her bag. The street was crowded, cabs scarce, the air cool enough to raise goosebumps on her forearms. "You headed far?" he asked, stopping beside her. "Home," she said. "But the ride shares are playing hard to get." "I'll take you," he offered, no hesitation. "My car's around the corner." She weighed him with her eyes, not suspicious, just careful, then nodded. "All right." They walked side by side, their steps syncing without effort. He opened the door for her, and she slid into the leather seat with a quiet thank you. The driver pulled into the flow of traffic, the city's glow sliding across the windows in gentle bands. They spoke in low tones. She told him about an illustration due in 2 days, how the character's smile kept coming out wrong and she couldn't figure out why. He talked about a contract he'd reworked that afternoon, how the numbers aligned perfectly but the people behind them didn't. It surprised both of them, how easily they could admit small frustrations without dressing them up. At a stoplight, Alara looked out at a florist closing shop, the owner arranging a last bundle of lilies in the window. "I like watching people finish their day," she said. "You can tell what mattered by what they keep close at the end." "What do you keep close?" he asked. She smiled without turning. "Depends on the day." When they reached her building, she hesitated before unbuckling. "Do you want tea?" she asked, as if the idea had surprised her on its way out. "I make a good cup." Cole felt something warm loosen in his chest. "I'd like that." They climbed the stairs. No elevator, just narrow steps and the faint scent of something baked earlier by a neighbor. Alara unlocked her door and pushed it open with her shoulder. A soft, homey warmth greeted them, a low lamp near the couch, a pair of small sneakers by the mat, and the gentle hush that lives in spaces that are loved. "Come in," she said, easing out of her shoes. "Make yourself comfortable." Alara's apartment was small, but it carried a kind of warmth that money couldn't buy. The couch cushions were a little soft in the middle, a knitted throw draped over the back. On the far wall, a string of children's drawings hung like quiet memories. Rockets, animals with smiling faces, a boat sailing across a field of blue crayon. Cole's eyes lingered on them. They weren't polished, but each one radiated something genuine. Among them, a picture of a woman with brown hair holding hands with a boy made him pause. The boy's smile was wide and unguarded. Alara noticed his glance but said nothing, just moved toward the kitchen with an easy grace. Tea? She asked. I've got chamomile or mint. Chamomile, he said, loosening his tie. She filled the kettle, the sound of running water soft against the hum of the city outside. Cole stepped closer to the drawings, noting the uneven lines, the fearless colors. They spoke of joy unfiltered by rules or expectations. He didn't ask who had drawn them. Somehow, he knew she would tell him in her own time. When she returned, she set the tray down on the coffee table. 2 mugs, steam curling upward, and a small jar of honey. Their fingers brushed when she handed him his cup, a fleeting moment that still managed to hold weight. You surround yourself with art, he said quietly. It keeps me grounded, she replied, tucking her legs beneath her as she sat. Children draw what's true for them, no pretending. He studied her in the lamplight, the relaxed curve of her shoulders, the faint color in her cheeks from the walk upstairs. She seemed more at home here than she ever had in the crowded banquet hall. You seem lighter here, he said. Her lips curved. Maybe it's because I'm not expected to be anyone else. He reached up, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. His hand lingered near her cheek, the warmth of her skin beneath his fingertips, making him slow his movements. She didn't look away. For a moment, neither spoke. The quiet wasn't empty. It was full, steady, and safe. And in that stillness, something in both of them leaned forward, waiting for the next breath to close the space between. Cole's hand rested against her cheek as if it belonged there, his thumb moving in a slow arc that made her pulse quicken. Alara's breath softened, her eyes searching his, not for charm, not for proof, but for something steady she could trust. She found it in the way he looked at her, unblinking, as though memorizing her. He leaned in until their foreheads touched, their breaths mingling in the narrow space between. When his lips met hers, it wasn't the hurried kiss of strangers testing the waters. It was patient, almost reverent. She returned it with the same care, her fingertips brushing the edge of his jaw, then resting against his chest to feel the steady beat beneath. They shifted slightly, the couch creaking under their weight as they turned toward each other. His arm slid around her, drawing her closer in a way that felt protective, not possessive. She let herself lean into him, the tension in her shoulders melting away under the quiet shelter of his embrace. Their kisses deepened gradually, the pauses between them filled with soft laughter and unspoken understanding. Her hand found his, fingers threading together naturally, as though they had been holding on for far longer than this night. He pulled back just enough to see her face in the lamplight. You okay? He asked, his voice low. She nodded, the smallest smile touching her lips. More than okay. He kissed her again, slower this time, and rested his forehead against hers once more. The outside world, the clinking glasses, the sharp suits, the judgments, faded entirely. There was only this room, this warmth, and the quiet certainty that they were both exactly where they should be. When they finally settled, her head rested against his shoulder, their hands still linked. Neither spoke. Words would have felt too small for the feeling between them. For Cole, it wasn't about conquest. For Alara, it wasn't about escape. It was about finding a place, however unexpected, where two people could simply be and know they were safe there. The corporate event was held in a glass-walled ballroom high above the city. From here, the skyline glittered, but Cole wasn't looking at it. His eyes were on the crowd, scanning for Alara. She'd agreed to come, her first time stepping into his professional world, and he'd been quietly proud to have her there. When she arrived, she wore a simple black dress that fit her like it belonged to her alone. Her hair was swept to one side, a single earring catching the light when she moved. She didn't cling to his arm, didn't search for cameras. She moved through the room with the same quiet self-assurance she carried everywhere. Cole was talking with a pair of investors when Serena appeared. She glided into the conversation effortlessly, her smile practiced, her eyes sharp. I see you brought someone tonight, she said lightly, glancing toward Alara. Lovely choice. Her name is Alara, Cole replied evenly. Oh, I know, Serena said. Single motherhood is no small thing. Balancing a career and a child? Impressive. The words were casual enough to pass for a compliment, but the timing, the publicness of it, landed like a stone in still water. Conversations nearby didn't stop, but Cole caught the flicker of curiosity in a few faces. He turned toward Alara. She stood a few feet away, her smile fading as her eyes locked on Serena. For the briefest second, something like fear passed over her features. Alara, he began, but she was already moving toward the exit. He caught up with her in the corridor, the hum of the ballroom fading behind them. You didn't tell me, he said, keeping his voice low. Her hands gripped the strap of her bag. I didn't think I had to. Not yet. It's not the fact, he said. It's that you didn't trust me with it. She shook her head, looking past him. You don't understand. People change when they know. I'm not people, he said, but she was already stepping back. You might be. They stepped outside into the cool night air, the city's hum filling the silence between them. Cole kept his voice steady. I've been nothing but honest with you. Alara's arms folded across her chest, more for protection than defiance. Honesty is easy when you're not the one being judged. I wouldn't judge you, he said. You say that now. Her gaze flicked toward the street, as if she could find a way out there. But I've seen how this world works, one detail, and suddenly people decide they know everything about you. He took a step closer. You think I care what they think? I think you don't understand what it's like to have someone else's life depending on your choices, she said, her voice tightening. Leo is my priority. Always. If that means keeping him out of sight until I'm sure, then that's what I do. Sure about me? He asked quietly. She hesitated. Too long. The pause told him more than her words could. That's not fair, she whispered. It's fair to want trust, he said. You're asking me to open the door to you while you're still deciding if you'll knock. Her eyes glistened, but she didn't let the tears fall. I've had people walk away before. I've had promises break. You can't tell me it's different until it's proven, and I can't risk being wrong. Cole's chest felt tight. So I'm guilty until proven innocent? She turned and walked toward the corner, her figure swallowed by the stream of passers-by. Cole stayed where he was, the weight of the conversation pressing down, heavy and unrelenting. Inside the ballroom, music swelled again. But out here, everything felt stripped bare. Cole didn't follow her. Not this time. He stood there on the sidewalk, hands in his pockets, watching until she disappeared into the current of the city. The sound of her footsteps faded, replaced by the distant thrum of traffic and the low chatter of strangers who didn't know they'd just witnessed the end of something fragile. Inside, the event went on without them. Glasses clinked, laughter rose and fell. It was a world that demanded his presence, yet felt completely irrelevant now. He walked away from the building, ignoring the messages lighting up his phone. He didn't want to be pulled back into conversations or explanations. His mind was still replaying her words. I can't risk being wrong. Back in his apartment, he loosened his tie and dropped it on the arm of the couch, the same spot where she'd sat not long ago. The silence here was different. Before, it had been peaceful. Now it felt like something was missing, like the air itself knew she wasn't coming back tonight. He poured a drink but didn't touch it. Instead, he stared at the skyline, trying to decide if he was angry or just tired. She hadn't lied, but she'd withheld, and in his world, withholding felt too close to betrayal. Across the city, Alara sat on her bed with her knees drawn up, Leo asleep in the next room. She stared at the half-finished drawing on her desk, pencil hovering in midair. The scene wouldn't come together. Her chest felt tight, the way it always did when she'd push someone away before they had the chance to leave on their own. Neither of them reached for the phone. Neither of them slept easily. By morning, the distance between them wasn't measured in miles, but in all the words left unsaid. The wind off the pond carried the faint scent of wet grass. Cole spotted them before they saw him, Alara sitting on a wooden bench, her hands folded in her lap, while a small boy knelt at the water's edge. Leo was folding a sheet of paper, creasing the edges with a concentration that made his tongue poke out just slightly. When the boat was ready, he set it gently on the surface, watching as the breeze nudged it forward. Cole approached slowly, not wanting to startle either of them. He crouched beside Leo. Mind if I help? Leo glanced up, curious but not wary, then handed him another sheet of paper. You know how? A little, Cole said, folding the paper in half. But you might have to show me the trick at the end. They worked in quiet, the rustle of paper mixing with the soft lap of water against the shore. When the second boat was ready, they set it afloat together. Her voice was careful, as if testing its own strength. He looked at her, straight but gentle. I'm not afraid of the truth, Alara. I just wish you'd trusted me with it. Her gaze dropped to her hands. I didn't want you to see me as less, or to think Leo was a reason not to stay. That's not how I see him, Cole said. Or you. She shook her head slightly. It's not just you. I've lost people. I've seen what happens when they decide the weight is too much, and every time Leo has been the one left watching me hold it together. I couldn't risk letting him see it happen again. Cole's voice softened. You can't scare away the right person by being yourself. For a moment, all they did was watch the boats drift further from shore. The wind caught one, turning it slightly, and Cole stepped closer to her, his shoulder brushing hers. The tension in her frame eased, not all at once, but enough for him to feel it. Alara looked at Leo, who was now racing along the bank to follow his boat, laughing when it bumped against a reed. That sound, his laughter, was what she had fought so hard to protect. "I didn't mean to shut you out," she said quietly. "I just didn't know how to let you in without risking everything." "You don't have to protect me from the parts of your life that matter most," Cole replied. "Those are the parts I want to see." She met his eyes then. No guardedness, no measuring him the way she used to. Just a long, searching look, as if she was finally allowing herself to believe him. "I don't want to lose this," she whispered. "Then don't," he said simply. He reached for her hand. She let him take it, her fingers curling around his in a grip that was steady, not tentative. Cole gave it the lightest squeeze, and in that small gesture the distance between them dissolved. Leo came running back, his cheeks flushed from the cool air. He held up the boat Cole had helped fold, proud. "Yours went farther," he told him. Cole smiled. Teamwork. Alara's lips curved, the first real smile he'd seen from her in weeks. She stood, brushing off her coat, and the three of them began walking toward the park's exit. Cole kept hold of her hand the entire way. From across the street, Serena stepped out of a waiting car. Her gaze landed on them. Alara on one side, Leo skipping ahead, Cole in the middle. She said nothing, only turned back to her driver and slid into the seat. The door shut with a quiet finality, and the car pulled away. Cole didn't even notice she'd been there. His focus was on the warmth of Alara's hand in his, the soft swing of their arms as they walked, and the easy rhythm that felt as though it had always been there, just waiting for the right moment to start. If this moment touched you, drop a heart emoji in the comments and don't forget to subscribe. I'd love to see them. Some love stories begin without warning. No staged lights, no perfect setting, just an ordinary moment that changes everything. Cole had spent years surrounded by people who perfected the art of pretending. Polished words, practiced smiles, and carefully curated lives. In that world, connection was more performance than truth. Alara had been the exception. She never tried to charm him. She never reshaped herself to fit an expectation. From the first moment he saw her with that plate of chicken, she showed him who she was and who she wasn't. Authenticity is risky. It can make you feel exposed, vulnerable, even unsafe. But pretending is far more dangerous. Pretending might win attention, but it never builds the kind of trust that makes someone stay. Cole learned that real love doesn't require you to be flawless, it asks you to be present. It doesn't demand a polished version of yourself. It invites the version that laughs too loud, eats with her hands, or folds paper boats by the pond. Alara had her reasons for holding back. She feared that sharing her truth would cost her something she couldn't afford to lose. She thought protecting her son meant protecting her heart, too. But what she discovered, and what Cole already knew, was that truth, even when it's complicated, is the only ground love can stand on. Vulnerability is not weakness. It's the courage to hand someone the parts of yourself that are easiest to hide and trust they will not turn away. Cole didn't just accept her truth. He wanted it. And when she let him in, they both realized the connection they'd built was not fragile. It was unshakable. Vulnerability builds real connection. We live in a world that teaches us to show only the strongest parts of ourselves. The polished resume, the perfect smile, the moments that prove we're in control. But true connection doesn't grow in perfection. It grows in the spaces where we let someone see our doubts, our scars, and the stories that shaped us. For Cole, it was easy to admire Alara's humor, her independence, her refusal to be impressed by status. But it was when she let him see her fear, her protectiveness, and the weight of being a parent alone that he began to truly understand her. It was in that honesty, messy, unpolished, and real, that love started to root itself deeply. And that's the third truth their story carries. Love embraces the whole truth. It doesn't turn away from the parts that are inconvenient or complicated. It doesn't shrink when it learns there are chapters that came before. If anything, it leans in closer, because every truth adds another reason to stay. Cole didn't see Leo as an obstacle. He saw him as part of the life he wanted with Alara. And Alara, once terrified of losing someone to the reality of her life, discovered that the right person doesn't run from the truth. They build their place inside it. The beauty of their story isn't that it was perfect, it's that it was honest. And honesty in love is what turns fragile beginnings into something that lasts. Some stories stay with us because they remind us of what we deserve. Not perfection, not a flawless script, but someone who meets us exactly where we are. Cole and Alara's path wasn't smooth. It had silence, misunderstanding, and moments where walking away seemed easier. But they learned something most people never do. That love is not about avoiding hard truths, it's about standing together in them. If you've ever held back from telling your full story because you feared someone would walk away, remember this. The right person won't. They will hear you out. They will stay. They will help you carry the weight instead of adding to it. And if you've ever been on the other side, loving someone who's afraid to let you all the way in, remember that trust takes time. Patience is its own form of love. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is, "I'm still here." To everyone who stayed with this story until the end, thank you. These moments matter because you've given them your time, and maybe, in some small way, they've given something back to you. Hope, courage, or simply the reminder that love worth having is love that sees all of you. If you believe love is about acceptance, hit subscribe, turn on the bell, and join me for the next story. We've got many more journeys to take together, and each one will be waiting here for you. Until then, be real, be brave, and never be afraid of the truth that makes you who you are.